We often see large, successful organizations investing heavily to solve problems, but using solutions that no longer seem to work. This isn't a failure of effort. It is a predictable outcome of the very systems that created their success. A structure built for stability can become a barrier to adaptation, leading them to perfect solutions for problems that have already changed. So why does this happen? Successful companies can fall behind because the very structures that create efficiency also build a powerful resistance to change. This resistance is not an error in the system. In many ways, it is an intended feature of how large organizations are designed to function. To understand this resistance, we should first look at the purpose of organizational structure itself. This design is a direct response to the challenges that come with managing scale and complexity. As an organization grows, it usually adopts what is called a bureaucratic structure. This is essentially a system built on standardization and formal procedures, all designed to manage complex operations in a consistent way. The point of this structure, as the sociologist Max Weber described, is to optimize operations. It is specifically designed to make outcomes predictable and efficient, and it does this by removing ambiguity and cutting down on costs. So how does it achieve this predictability? It is done by creating clearly defined roles and a distinct hierarchy. Standardized processes then ensure that tasks are performed consistently, no matter who is actually performing the work. Now, while this structure is very effective for maintaining stability, it also produces a powerful and unintended consequence: a deep-seated resistance to change. This effect is called organizational inertia. It is the tendency for an organization to keep using its established procedures even when circumstances have changed and those procedures are no longer effective. This inertia first appears in the structure itself. The rigid hierarchies, formal rules, and established processes that create efficiency are, by their nature, difficult and costly to alter. Next, it manifests as knowledge inertia. This is the tendency to solve new problems using old, familiar methods, relying on what is already known instead of developing new approaches. And finally, there is psychological inertia. This is the human element, our natural resistance to change. It often comes from a preference for familiar routines and a desire to avoid the uncertainty that accompanies new ways of working. When a new type of problem emerges, one that does not fit existing procedures, this organizational inertia often triggers a reinforcing cycle of ineffective problem solving. In systems thinking, this pattern is known as fixes that fail. It describes a situation where a solution appears effective in the short term, but over the long term, it actually makes the original problem worse. Here is how that cycle usually plays out. A new problem is identified. In response, the organization applies a familiar, readily available solution. This fix provides immediate relief. The symptoms of the problem seem to resolve. However, this quick fix creates unintended side effects. After a delay, those side effects cause the original problem to reappear, often in a much more severe form. That delay, the time between the fix and its negative consequences, is the critical element. This time lag makes it difficult to see the connection between the applied solution and the worsening problem. As a result, the organization often continues to apply the same short-term fix. This entire cycle reveals a fundamental trade-off, one that exists at the very core of every large organization. It explains the struggle to adapt to new environments. The organization is optimized for the predictable execution of tasks it already knows how to do. But this comes at the expense of its ability to adapt to future challenges. Efficiency gets prioritized over innovation, and managing known risks is favored over navigating unknown ones. So when we see an organization failing to adapt, it is not necessarily because its leaders are making poor decisions. It is more likely that the system is performing exactly as it was designed to. It is doing its job, resisting deviation and maintaining stability. Ultimately, organizations keep solving yesterday's problems not because their systems are broken, but because those systems are precisely designed to perfect yesterday's solutions. And that brings us to the core trade-off. A system that is optimized for predictability cannot, at the same time, be optimized for adaptation.